ॐ नमो नारायणाय ॐ नमो नारायणाय
Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So continuing on with Sri Vaisnava Brahmans. In Sri Vaisnava Brahmans, we have covered the Alvars, and now we're going to look at the Acharyas. Acharyas, section 5. Now, coming in the line of Acharyas, when we say line of Acharyas, the word Acharya means teacher or guru, and the lineage the lineage or the line of Acharyas is called Guru Parampara, or the teachers one after another, the succession of teachers, right? So the first of them was Nata Muni. So Nata Muni is considered the first of the Acharyas. He was born according to tradition. Remember, we're giving traditional dates here. 3,641 years after the great saint Namalwar. So Namalwar, remember we were talking about traditional dates of Namalwar. If we look back, we can see, I think we can find, what was that? Said something about Namalwar. Where is it? Namalwar, 3,102 BC. Okay, so if we add to 3,102 BC, if we add 3,641, right? So we're probably talking about 500 AD, 500 CE, like that. That's his idea. Okay. So let me just see. Let me just take that. What was it? 3,602. 3,602, right? Minus 3,641. Okay, so I'm sorry, 3,102. 3,102 minus 3,641. Okay, we're talking about 539 AD. That's the traditional idea. Why Pogai Alwar was considered the first Alwar. I think we covered that last time. It's not a matter of being considered the first. They all have traditional dates, and even the day of the week and the star that they were born under, and the day, and place they were born. And so Pogai, Budit, and Pei Alwars were the first. They're called the Mudal Alwars, the first Alwars. So why there weren't Alwars before that? Why there weren't Alwars after that? Why there weren't more Alwars during that? We don't know. That's of the Alwars, the people who wrote the 4,000 Tamil verses in praise of the Supreme Lord, which are used by Sri Vaishnavas. They lived at those particular dates and they wrote those particular things. I'm sure there are other people. There are other rishis and sages and other people who also were God inspired also. But the Alwars are a particular group, and we don't know why there were not more or less, or why they came at a particular time. No. Okay, so that is to say, he was born in the year 3684 in Kali Yuga. 3684 Kali Yuga. I don't know how he gets that math actually, but anyway, let's go with that. As he was endowed with yogic powers, he was often called the Yogi or Nata Muni Yogi. And in fact, we have a book which is ascribed to him called Yoga Rahasya, which is available from the Krishna Yoga Mandiram, which is a group, a Sri Vaishnava group that teaches yoga and also teaches Vedic mantras. And that was started by Deshikachar, who is the son of the famous yogi, of the most famous yogi of the 19th and 20th century, T. Krishnamacharya, who was the guru and yoga teacher of the Maharaj of Mysore. And most of the famous yoga teachers today, like Patabi Joyce and BBK Iyengar and Deshikachar, they all learned from him. So anyhow, if you want that Yoga Rahasya, you can get it from Krishna Yoga Mandiram, or you can just email me and you can ask me about it, and I can tell you how to get it. like that. It's ascribed to Nata Muni. So we're talking here about Nata Muni. So as he was endowed with yogic powers, he was also called a yogi or Nata Muni yogi. While staying at Viranarayanapuram, so there's a place called Viranarayanapuram, he heard the recital of Sri Vaishnavas of the Pasaram beginning with Aravamude. Okay, so a few verses he heard of the Nalaya Divya Prabandham, and this one particular verse beginning with Aravamude in the presence of God Rajagopal in the temple. So the deity there in the temple was Rajagopal. Learning from them, the people who chanted that Pasaram, that Tamil stanza of the Alwars, that it might be possible to find someone who knew all the 4,000 stanzas or Pasarams of the Alwars, and especially those of Nam Alwar at Srinagari or Alwar Tirunagari. He met at that place one Pundarik Parankusha Dasa, who was one of the disciples of Madhurakavi. We can say was a descendant of Madhurakavi Alwar, who was the disciple of Nam Alwar. So the idea is that this particular stanza or Pasaram of Nalaya Divya Prabandha mentioned that there were thousands of other stanzas. So when he heard that, he went to the people who were chanting that and said, okay, you have chanted something saying that there were many other stanzas. Do you know? I'd like to hear all the other stanzas. They said, we don't know all the other stanzas. They seem to have been lost to us or in time. But if you go to the place of Nam Alwar Tirunagari and you inquire there, maybe they know them. So when he went down there, he met a descendant of the family of Madhurakavi Alwar, who was the disciple of Nam Alwar. And he said, on being questioned, Parankusidasa said that he knew only 10 stanzas, usually called Kaninun Siratamba. Okay, so here's the name is given in Tamil script, Kaninun Siratamba, right? Okay, so that is the prayer by his ancestor Madhurakavi Alwar, addressed to Nata Muni. Addressed to Nam Alwar, and continued that anyone who reverentially and faithfully repeats the stanzas 12,000 times may find the favor in the eyes of Nam Alwar and thus be blessed with his glorious presence. So we can see here from the very beginning, we look it up, Nata Muni was the first Acharya, and he lived thousands of years after the Alwars. So he was trying to get the works of the Alwars, but by the time he went to the place of Nam Alwar, nobody really knew them. They only knew these 10 verses. But the 10 verses were the verses of prayer to Nam Alwar by his disciple Madhurakavi Alwar. So the descendant of Madhurakavi Alwar suggested that he chant these 12,000 these 10 slokas, these 10 pasurams 12,000 times, and he might get the grace of Nam Alwar, and Nam Alwar might appear to him. Some people tell the story slightly differently. There may be a different number of times that he was supposed to chant it. But anyway, the idea is that he was supposed to chant these, and then maybe Nam Alwar would appear to him and give him mercy. So Nata Muni Gal, right? When we say Gal, it just means it's just a plural in Tamil. Kalo Gal is a plural, and it's added on to be respectful. So just like in Hindi, they have you say Swami, but you might say Swami Ji to be more respectful. So here, Nata Muni Gal. So Nata Muni carried out the repetition of Madhurakavi's stanzas successfully under Parankushadasa's guidance. And in response to this prayer, Sadakopan or Nam Alwar appeared to Nata Muni in a vision. So in a yogic trance or in a vision, Nam Alwar appeared to Nata Muni and asked him what he wanted. So he was pleased with him, and he appeared to him and said, "What do you want?" So to this, Nata Muni replied that he wished to be taught the prabandhas of the Alwars, right, and be instructed in the spiritual knowledge. Then Sadakopan, or Nam Alwar, endowed Nata Muni with divine vision and taught him the 3 rahasyas. The 3 rahasyas are, rahasya means secrets. The 3 rahasyas are the 3 mantras which are given as mantra upadesha in Panchasamskara or Samashrayanam by the initiation of the Sri Vaishnavas. So they are the Astakshara mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. Dvaya Mantra Sriman Narayana Sarno Sharam Pavadye Shrimate Narayanaya Namaha. And the Krishna Sharma Sloka, the last order of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter, verse 66, Sarvadhanaman Parityaja, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, Aham Tva Sarvapapebhyo Moksha Yishyami Vansijaha. So, Namawa taught him the three rahasyas, basically initiated him. And the Prabandham, meaning the 4,000 Tamil pasurams of the Alvars, 4,000 Tamil stanzas of the Alvars. The essence of various, then he also taught him the essence of various schools of philosophy and systems of religion and the mysteries of the eightfold path of yoga, Astanga yoga. So, Patanjali talks about Astanga yoga, Yama, Niyama, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayamaha, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. I might have missed some there. But anyway, this eightfold yoga system. So then, Nata Muni resided there for some time, devoting himself to the service of Lord Adinatha. So there was a deity there called Adinatha into Alva Tirunagari, and Sadakopan, meaning Namalwa. So Nata Muni, as soon as he learned the Prabandhas, caused them to be set to music with the assistance of his nephews, Bhadraksha and Rama Mishra. Nata Muni was succeeded by Uyakonda. Uyakonda was also known in Sanskrit as Pundarikaksha, but he's the next acharya after Nata Muni. Nata Muni is the first acharya. Born in the year 3927 of Kali Yuga. He was directed by his master, Nata Muni, to communicate the secrets of religion to his grandson. Who is Nata Muni's grandson? Yamuna Muni, or Yamunacharya, or otherwise known in Tamil as Alavandar. As Uyakonda was unable to carry out the wishes of his master before his death, he desired the best of his disciples. So Uyakonda or Pundarikaksha is the second acharya after Nata Muni. And then he had a disciple called Manakal Nambi or Rama Mishra. So he desired the best of his disciples, Manakal Nambi or Rama Mishra, Manakal Nambi in Tamil, Rama Mishra in Sanskrit, to fulfill his master's wish by initiating Yamunacharya into the secrets. What are the secrets again? The three secrets are the initiation mantras, and then also the Divya Prabandham, and also the 4,000 songs of the Alvars, and also all the things that he got from Namalwar, the mysteries of the eightfold path of yoga, and all the understandings of different schools of philosophy and religion. So, Manakal Nambi was born in the year 3932 of Kali Yuga. He when this acharya, also called Rama Mishra, was about 85 years of age, Yamunacharya was born in the year 4017 of Kali Yuga. And as soon as he heard of the birth of his grandson, Tunatha Munigal, he hurried to the birthplace. And on the 12th day from the birth of the child, caused him to be named Yamunacharya, in accordance with the directions of his own master, Uyakonda or Pundarikaksha. Yamunacharya, when of age, began to study the Vedas and Shastras, and very soon became an efficient and well-read scholar. So he was in a Gurukula, so he was studying the Vedas. Usually the Brahmin boys are invested with the sacred thread. They have the Upanayana at the age of 7 or 8 years from their conception. Later on in his life, he had a contest with Aki Alvan, and won a victory over him. Aki Alvan was a minister of one of the king at the time, and the king and the queen had a bet to see. They had a wager to see who would win the contest between between Yamunacharya, who was just a young boy at the time, and this Akyalvan, who was a great minister. Yamunacharya won the debate, and you can read about that in the story of Yamunacharya's life. And as a result, half of the kingdom was given to him, because this was the bet between the king and the queen. And so as a result of his success, he was given by the Raja, by the king, a large portion of his kingdom. From that time, Yamunacharya lived like a prince, and he was also named Alavandar after this victory over Akyalvan. Manakal Nambi, or Ram Mishra, could not meet Alavandar, right? Because now he was a prince, right? He had a lot of people in between meeting him, and ordinary people couldn't meet him. So Rama Mishra, or Manakal Nambi, he got this idea how he could meet the prince. So instead of going empty-handed, he used to supply daily the green leaves of a plant called Tutavalai, and the Latin name is given here, Solanum trilobatum. It's a type of spinach. A solanaceous plant. I'm not sure of that word, what it means exactly, but anyway, it's an edible plant, which he used to come to the kitchen and provide for the cook, who would cook food for the prince, for Prince Yamunacharya, or Alavandar. So then, of which Alavandar was very fond for 6 months. Then Manakal Nambi discontinued the supply of green leaves for 4 days successively. Alavandar, Yamunacharya, noticing the absence of the preparation of the green leaf, questioned the cook. On hearing from the cook that Manakal Nambi, who was bringing these leaves daily, did not do so for the last 4 days, he ordered the cook to direct Manakal Nambi to him when he would come. On the 5th day, Manakal Nambi came and was taken before Alavandar. On seeing Alavandar, Manakal Nambi told him that he was entrusted by his grandfather's request with some treasure to be bequeathed. So Alavandar told the prince, Manakal Nambi told the Prince Alavandar that your grandfather has left you an inheritance of a great treasure. This aroused the attention of Alavandar, and so he followed Manakal Nambi, who gradually instilled into him into Alavandar's mind spiritual truth. So he told him, you have to come with me and I'll get you the treasure of the inheritance. And he took him to Sri Rangam, and along the way he preached to him and turned his mind from being a prince back to being a more spiritual person. As a result of this upadesha, or instruction, Alavandar renounced the world and became a sannyasi. So he became a renunciate. As a spiritual teacher, Alavandar became a great sannyasi, and even Ramanuja owes a great deal to his direct influence. That his doctrines and mode of thinking were entirely based upon Vishishtadvaita philosophy is very clear from one of his writings, Stotra Ratnam, which we still have today, 65 verses praising the Lord, which include a lot of doctrines and mode of thinking, and explains about property, surrender, and so many things. So if you want to see, we have on this same YouTube channel, you can look for the playlist about lessons on Stotra Ratna, and I think we have more than 100 lessons by Dr. Tirunarayana of Sri Rangam, explaining Stotra Ratna of Alavandar with the commentary of another Acharya later on called Perivachan Pillai. So it's a very interesting class. So he also insisted upon the view now held by every Vadagalai Sri Vaisnava that Lakshmi, or Sri, was endowed with vibhutvam, just like Narayana, and that she was with him always, everywhere, and in all vibhutis. Okay, so the author of this book is a Vadagalai. He's a member of the Northern School of Sri Vaishnavism. So there's a slight difference in the understanding of the tattva, or the principles, the principle of Sri Devi, or Mahalakshmi, divine consort of the Supreme Lord, and her relationship to the Supreme Lord. So it has to do with the idea that and anyway, we don't go into it here, but basically the two schools have slight difference on this of opinion about this. Alavandar's Chatusloki, which is another work by Yamunacharya Alavandar, and this time only 4 verses, describes Lakshmi, and he considers both Lakshmi, God, and Lakshmi to be as equal. Right. Number 1, the best. Okay, so there's a dispute about this. Obviously, at the time of Alavandar and the Stotra Ratna, we understand there was no division into different sects of Sri Vaishnavism at that time. So the Chatusloki on Sri Devi and the Stotra Ratna prayers to Lord Srimanarayana, they're accepted by all Sri Vaishnavas, both of the northern and the southern schools. They just have some slight different interpretations on the meaning of some of those verses. So, number 1, this is, I guess he's going to try and explain the northern school's idea about this. The best of Purushas, that is God, is your dear husband, meaning Mahalakshmi's dear husband. Adishesha is your bed, and he is your seat, the divine serpent, right? Garuda, the lord of birds, the embodiment, Swarupa of the Vedas, is your Vahanam or carrier. The Prakriti or primordial matter, which bewitches everyone, is your curtain. Brahma, Rudra, and the Devatas, with their wives, are your male and man servants. You are yourself called Shri, O Lakshmi, who is full of good and auspicious qualities. How shall we describe you? Right. So this is his free translation, his translation of Chatusloki, the 4 verses of Alavandar on Mahalakshmi. Verse 2, your Mahima or greatness in everything, which is boundless and ever loving, like that of your husband, cannot be measured even by the God of your heart, who is also the most powerful or knowing. O Lakshmi, who is the one mistress of all the worlds, and who is the wife of the Bhagavan, the Lord of all the lokas or planets. I, who know your mercy that is shown by you to those who throw themselves at your feet, have now begun to worship without fear, knowing that I am your servant and a prapana, meaning a refugee at your feet, surrendered at your feet. Verse 3, the 3 worlds that were decaying by the want of your mercy, shown by the ambrosia of your sight, are now flourishing as they are having now your protection. Without your grace, who is dear to the heart of Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, Srimanarayana, having eyes like lotus flowers, men cannot obtain the highest bliss of attaining Aishwarya, or opulence, right? Different opulences like dharma, religiosity, artha, economic development, and kama, sense gratification. Enjoying pure jivatma, enjoying the purity of the soul, and reaching God through the Achiradi Marga. Marga means a path, and the Achiradi Marga means the path of light to Sri Vaikuntham after death. So text 4, the Supreme Being, who is without any change, who is limitless and is far above all things, and who is called Brahman, the Supreme Being, who likes his most wonderful form with angas or parts called Paravasudeva, and the Supreme Being whose incarnations are manifested for his own pleasure, is inseparably associated with you, O Lakshmi, who is capable of assuming the different forms appropriate to God's forms. Okay, so here in the 4th stanza, he's talking about how the Supreme Lord is in Sri Vaikuntha, and then Mahalakshmi is there with him, Sri Devi. And then also when he comes in his different avatars as Krishna and Rama and etc., she also accompanies him in appropriate forms. So when he comes as Rama, she comes as Sita. When he comes as Krishna, she comes as Rukmini, like that. So here we have the sixth part. So part 6 is about Ramanuja. So up until now, we talked about, as far as acharyas are concerned, we started with Natha Muni, first acharya. who was given grace, the grace of Namalwar, and everything was given to him by Namalwar, even though they lived many thousands of years apart. Then we have Uyakonda, Rama Mishra, so Pundarikaksha, Uyakonda, Rama Mishra or Manakal Nambi, and then after that, Alavanda, Yamunacharya, and after Alavandar, we have the disciples of Alavandar, and then we have Ramanuja. So now we're going to talk about Ramanuja. So Ramanuja, the great reformer Ramanuja, who succeeded Alavandar, was born at Budapuri, now called Sri Parambadur, which is in between Madras or Chennai and Kanchipuram, right, in Tamil Nadu, in the year Pingala. So each year has a name. There are 60 different names of years. They come one after another and they go around in a cycle. This is called the Jovian cycle. It takes the planet Jupiter 60 years to go one time around the whole sun, around the sun. And so then at the end of that cycle, they start again with the years. This is called the Jovian cycle. So each year has a particular name. So this year, the year was Pingala year. In the month of Chitrai, which is sort of equal to the lunar month of Chaitra in the North Indian calendar, somewhere around April. On, if we go by the Gregorian Western calendar, on a Thursday, right, it was a Shukla Paksha, which means a bright fortnight, Panchami, or the fifth lunar day of the bright fortnight, under the Ardra star. Ardra is one of the 27 or 28 nakshatras. So Ardra, in Sanskrit, it's called Ardra. If you go to Tamil Nadu, they call it Tiruvadirai. And the year was 4,118 of Kali Yuga, right? Which is equivalent to 1017 AD or CE, after Christ. Right, so, and we just had, a few years ago, we just had the 1000th anniversary of Ramanuja's birth. So everyone before Ramanuja was more than 1,000 years ago. Ramanuja was like 1,000 years ago. As the son of, his father's name was Asuri Keshava Somayaji. Somayaji is usually a title given to somebody who performs a Somayaga, means a Vedic sacrifice where the herb Soma is squeezed and the juice is offered, the Soma Rasa, the Soma juice is offered to Vishnu in the fire. Usually Agnistoma sacrifice. So his name was Asuri Keshava Somayaji, and his mother's name was Kantimati. She was the sister of Shri Shaila Purna. So according to some, Asuri Keshava Somayaji was a Vadama Brahman of the Yajushaka Apastamba Sutra of Harita Gotra. Okay. So the Gotra is the family lineage, and so Harita Gotra is one of those Gotras. Apastamba Sutra is the method, is one of the sutras belonging. Apastamba was a person who commented on the ritualism of the Krishna Yajurveda Brahmins. He was a Krishna Yajurvedi, and here it's saying, according to some people, Ramanuja's father was a Vadama. Vadama means there are 8 types of smartas, different Brahmins who follow the Shmiti Shastras very closely, and he was considered a Vadama. So the Vadamas are not exactly Vaishnavas, but they worship Lord Vishnu, but they're considered smartas. Like that. Okay. So Ramanuja, so this is according to some people, and amongst Sri Vaishnavas even today, if you have to perform some Vedic ritual or something like that, and you can't get enough Vaishnavas, you can bring Brahmins from the Vadama section of the Smartas who worship Lord Vishnu. They worship Lord Vishnu, but they have perhaps a little bit of different philosophy following Adi Shankaracharya or something like that. But they worship Lord Vishnu, and you can bring them and substitute them for Vaishnavas if you don't have enough Vaishnavas. So there's a saying among Sri Vaishnavas: if you can't get a Sri Vaishnava, you can get a Vadama. So Ramanuja, when he was of the proper age, began in his general and Vedic studies under Yadava Prakash. Remember when we talked about Alavanda or Yamunacharya, at the Brahmin boys, they'll enter the Gurukula and they'll start the Veda Dhyana, they'll start studying the Vedas at the age of 7. right? Or 8 years from their conception. So he began his Vedic studies under Yadava Prakash, an Advaitic sannyasin. Okay, so actually, I have to differ a little bit here with the author here. He calls him an Advaitic sannyasi, a sannyasi who is following the Advaita. Advaita Vedanta is the philosophy. Advaita or Kevala Advaita is the philosophy of Adi Shankaracharya. Yadava Prakash is more correctly called a follower of Veda Vad. So there are two initial schools of Veda Vad. One was by Yadava Prakash, but before him, there was another person, I think Bhaskara, and who had this Veda Vad. So it's a type of Vedanta like that, but not the same type of Vedanta that Sri Vaishnavas belong to, which is Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. So there are many different schools of Vedanta, different flavors of Vedanta. And if you want to know more about that, then please, there's an email at the end of the lesson, the video. So you can just contact me and you can learn all about the different schools of Vedanta. But in any case, he says that he's an Advaitic sannyasi, and I differ a little bit with him on that. Even while studying under this Advaitic sannyasi, he seemed to have differed from his master in the interpretation of certain passages in the Vedas. So the idea is that people following different forms of Vedanta, they will interpret they'll interpret the words in the Upanishads, which is the philosophical part of the Vedas, in slightly different ways. So according to the traditional account, 3 instances are given, and they are described as follows. So the first instance to differ occurred when the Upanishad statement, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Taittiriya Upanishad 2.1.1, was explained by Yadava Prakash, right? So Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So Brahma means Brahman, Satyam means truth, Jnana means knowledge, Anantam means infinite, right? So what does that mean? What does that statement mean all put together? This statement, when translated into English, is Brahman or God, Sriman Narayana, the absolute, right, is truth, knowledge, and infinity. Simple translation. In explaining this passage, Yadava Prakash held that the 3 attributes, truth, knowledge, and infinity, could not be predicated of Brahman, just as a cow could not be considered to be, at the same time, broken-horned, hornless, and full-horned. So what he's saying that he's trying to make an analogy here to try to understand this, because in Advaita Vedanta, or in the Vedanta of Yadava Prakash, the idea is that Brahman shouldn't have attributes, because a thing and its attributes have some distinction. There's some distinction between a thing and its attributes. A thing and its attributes are not one. So if you believe in total oneness, you don't believe in Brahman having any attributes at all. So the Advaitins, or people who tend towards the impersonalist or monists, they try to say that everything is nirguna. Guna means qualities or attributes. Nir means without. So they try to say that he's without attributes. So so he's trying to, with this analogy, he's trying to say that really Brahman, or the Supreme, has no attributes. In other words, Brahman cannot simultaneously be the possessor of various attributes. To Ramanuja, this explanation was not satisfactory, and on being pressed to give his own explanation, he gave out his own explanation as follows. The attributes, truth, knowledge, and infinity, are mutually exclusive of one another. Previously, Yadava Prakash was trying to give an analogy saying that these attributes are contradictory, right? Because a cow cannot have, you cannot describe a cow as being fully horned, having no horns, or having like half horns, broken horns. So you can only, they're contradictory attributes. So it can't be described actually. So, but Ramanuja is saying, no, they're not incompatible with each other. So so just the attributes truth, knowledge, and infinity are mutually exclusive to one another, and so are not incompatible in one and the same being. The attribute of truth precludes all idea of momentary change. If something is true, really true, it's eternally true. It's always true. Oh, yeah. Something which is only partially true or only true under certain circumstances or for a certain time is not absolute truth. But since the Supreme Lord or the absolute truth is true in the sense of being absolutely true, then is beyond that trueness. That trueness is beyond momentary change, is what he was saying. It is meant to fully establish that the existence of God is eternal. The second attribute, knowledge, is intended to establish that God is an all-knowing spirit and free from achit. Achit means insentience. Insentience. Sentience means knowledge. Insentience means no knowledge. So achit is matter, insentient matter, right? Like we see matter doesn't have any consciousness, it doesn't have any knowledge, like that. So free from achit, that is, removes all possibility of the presence of achit, insentience, lifeless matter in his nature. The attribute of infinity is meant to establish that Brahman is without limits or conditions. That is, it puts an end to all conceptions of limitation of his essence. So here Ramanuja is saying, basically, that these three words, right, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, right, which mean truth, knowledge, and infinity, right, they actually explain attributes of the one Brahman or the one Supreme Lord, right, which are not contradictory. And the reason for the Vedas or the Upanishads stating these three attributes is to explain, number one, God's absolute truth and eternality, right? Number two, him being all knowing and free from any ignorance, right? And number three, without any limitations or conditions put on his existence or his essence. Okay, so truth, therefore, is the term that characterizes Brahman as eternal, distinguishing it from what is not eternal. Knowledge is the term that characterizes Brahman as spirit or life, distinguishing it from what is non-spirit or non-life. And infinity, which characterizes Brahman as infinite, distinguishing it from that which is non-infinite or conditioned by space limitations or mode limitations. The attributes of these attributes and infinite others can coexist in Brahman, the Supreme Lord, without mutual contradiction, as redness, softness, perfume, etc., can harmoniously coexist in a flower. So if you have a red rose, it's soft, it's red, and it also smells sweet. And there's no contradictory to those different attributes are not contradictory. The analogy of a cow is not appropriate in this case. The analogy of the flower was quoted, or the sun having light and heat coexisting is appropriate. So we can have some other analogies to explain this, but not the analogy of the cow. That idea of the cow and the horns is not a good analogy for that. So, and therefore, to try and postulate an attributeless or Brahman or the Supreme without any attributes or any qualities, or a Brahman in whom different attributes cannot coexist, is neither logical nor consistent with the affirmatory character of the Vedic passage in question. And that is a direct quote from Life of Ramanuja by Govindacharya, pages 30 to 31. You can also get that book. The author's name is in full Alkondavili Govindacharya, who lived in the 19th and 20th, I think 19th century, maybe also in the 20th century. And he wrote He was a Tengalai Sri Vaisnava, or one of the Southern school, but here he's being quoted. So the Life of Ramanuja, that's also available if you want to read that. So just get in touch with me and I can give you a link to download that freely. Now, the second disagreement that Ramanuja had with Yadava Prakash's Gurukul teacher is in which Ramanuja differed from the explanation given by Yadava Prakash to the following. Tasya yata kapyasam pundarikam eva akshini. This is from Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 1, section 7, verses 6 to 7. So the explanation given by Yadava Prakash being blasphemous in character, Ramanuja was very much affected and tears ran down his eyes. The hot tears of indignation caused by the wanton sacrilege coursed down the cheeks of Ramanuja's cheeks and fell on Yadava's thighs and scalded them severely. Some people say he was giving a massage to his teacher and they fell on his back and he felt it. Anyway, he felt that he was crying. So it was sad to hear this. On this, he asked Ramanuja to say why he was crying, and he explained the whole situation and said that the true explanation of the passage should be thus. The eyes of the golden person or God in the sun, Surya Narayanam, are like the lotus blooming under the influence of the welcome rays of the sun. Sir, Ramanuja cried, can you not see that ka here in this passage means water and pibati means to drink? Water drinker is thus kapi, the sun or the lotus stalk. So because the sun's rays evaporate the water, or the lotus stalk sucks up the water from the pond. So asa is to open, vikasane, or to rest, upavasane. Pundarika is the lotus. And therefore God in the lotus, in the sun, God in the sun is he whose eyes are like the lotus growing in the deep water, which blooms under the balmy beams of the sun, and or lotus which rests on its stalk below. It is the repudiation of God to deny him personhood. And when the Vedas postulate such a personality, it is doubly to repudiate him by reading blasphemous similes into the Vedas where reverential gravity and grandeur is intended. Such constructions betoken nothing short of heresy. This is also from Life of Ramanuja by Alkondavili Govindacharya, page 32. So, he doesn't mention what Yadava Prakash had said, but I'll just mention it to you. Yadava Prakash had a very strange translation to this verse in the Upanishads, and he said that the face of God is just like the red backside of a monkey. So that's why Ramanuja considered that to be blasphemous. So this reply was too much for Yadava Prakash, and so he asked Ramanuja to leave him. He expelled him from the school. He asked him to go out from the Gurukul because he was counteracting his explanations. As he cannot calmly take in his instruction. So he said, you're becoming emotional here. You don't understand it. I've explained it correctly. Get out. They told him to get out. And Ramanuja departed without saying anything. So then the third occasion for a difference of opinion arose in explaining the following passages. So we have a couple of passages here, one from Chandogya Upanishad 3:10:1, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 6:4-19. Neha na nasti kinchana. Yadava Prakash was one day explaining the above Vedanta texts as if they meant that the soul, or man, and God were identical. The first passage means all this is indeed Brahman, sarvam kalvidam Brahma. And the second means there is not the least diversity here. Neha nanasti kinchana. According to Yadava, the first passage meant that all this cosmos is God. The second passage means that all the diversities that we see, all the differences that are seen in the cosmos are illusory. Ramanuja took objection to these interpretations and said that the cosmos or the universe can never be identical with the supreme Brahman, Sriman Narayana, or God, nor can it be proved unreal, right? So because Adi Shankara's, the Advaitic philosophy or Adi Shankara's philosophy is Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, that Brahman is the only thing which is real, that actually this world of this universe is unreal, it's illusory, Mithya. For the first passage, all this indeed is Brahman, meant the cosmos is permeated with his spirit. That is, it's full of God, right? It's permeated, it's all, God is all pervasive, so God pervades the whole universe. In other words, the cosmos has no existence independent from God. It exists by his will. He is its creator, preserver, and destroyer. He is its ruler and rules by his immanence, by his being completely pervaded by him. And the second passage meant that the diversity of the cosmos is real, inasmuch as it is sustained by the unity of God. And therefore, whoso sees the diverse cosmos as severed from God, as distinct from God, sees not aright, doesn't see things correctly. There is but one God, neither two nor many. Right. In him is all. Everything is within him. That is the meaning of the text. So Ramanuja explained, not only is God within everything, everything is also within him. Cosmos is not denied in as much as its existence is eternal substantially, though it exteriorly undergoes adjectival change. So there is some change going on in the cosmos, but the cosmos also always exists. It is an axiom that nothing can come out of nothing, right? So it's understood nothing can come out of nothing. It's always there, the universe, and it was also created by God. The cosmos is real. The universe is real. It is in God, who is thus one only, not many. This passage is thus an assertion, not a negation of the cosmos. Complete opposite to what Yadava Prakash had said. This is also from Life of Ramanuja by Alkondavelli Govindacharya, page 43. Soon after finishing his studies, Ramanuja vacillated a little and had certain doubts. So he requested Tirukachi Nambi, also called Kanchipurna, right, who was a devotee of Lord Varadarajan at the Varadaraja god at Conjeevaram. Conjeevaram is another name for Kanchipuram. So the school of Yadava Prakash was in Kanchipuram. As I said, the place where Ramanuja was born was Sri Perumbudur, which is close to Kanchipuram, between Madras and Kanchipuram. So then he went to school with Yadava Prakash in Kanchipuram, and he used to visit that temple of in Kanchipuram of Lord Varadaraja, and there was a person who was fanning the deity who was a servant in the temple called Tirukachi Nambi. So he requested, after he had certain doubts, after he finished his Gurukul years, Ramanuja had some doubts, and so he asked this Tirukachi Nambi to ask the deity, Lord Varadarajan. Apparently this devotee could speak with the deity. He wanted to ask the Supreme Person, Lord Sriman Narayana in Kanchipuram, right? He wanted to ask him about some of his doubts. The Sri Vaishnavas believe that Tirukachi Nambi was a privileged being having the power of holding conversation with God Varadarajan. One day, Tirukachi Nambi mentioned Ramanuja's doubt to Varadarajan, who is said to have anticipated the questions and answered them as follows. Right? So here's the answers. Number one, I am the supreme reality or truth. Sriman Narayana, I am the supreme reality or truth. Number 2, myself, Sriman Narayana, and the souls, the Jivatmans, right, or the Chit potency, right, are different. Myself and the souls are different. That is, there is an essential difference between God and the souls. That's the second thing. Third thing, by faith in me and final surrender property, right, men reach me. They attain salvation by property. Number 4, thought of me at the time of death, which is mentioned in the scriptures, even in Bhagavad Gita. It's called Antima Shmiti. Antima means the last time, at the end of your life. Shmiti means remembering God at the time of death. Or you remember anything. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavan. Whatever we think of at the time of death, that we will attain. So here, that doctrine is called Antima Shmiti. So he wanted to know, is it truly necessary to remember God at the time of death? Ramanuja wanted to know, to attain him, to attain God. So maybe you're surrendered to God, but maybe you forget God at the time of death, and then don't you have to take another birth? And the Bhagavad Gita says you have to take another birth. This is what the answer is given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. The answer given here is, thought of me at the time of death, Antima Shmiti, is not essential for the faithful. Those people who have surrendered to the Supreme Lord, those people who are refugees at his feet, or who are devoted to him as bhaktas, who perform bhakti yoga or property, they do not have to remember the Lord at the time of death. The Lord will remember them. This answer is also confirmed in the Varaha Purana by the Varaha Charama Sloka, where Lord Varaha says, Aham smarami mad bhaktam nayami paramam gatim. I will remember at the time of death, I will remember my devotee, and I will take him to the supreme destination. How Kanchi Purna, being a low caste, was able to fan the deity of the Lord personally, this is not allowed only for the Archika. Yes, so there's different methods of fanning. So when you're up close and you're fanning the deity with a chamara or a very close fan, okay, that is done by the Archika, who's a Brahmin. At the same time, there are other people who pull ropes, and there's a big fan overhead, and he was able to do this service. He was able to do this service for Lord Varadarajan. Not exactly sure about it. We can talk to the people in Kanchipuram and see what the standard is for being able to do such a service in that temple. But anyway, that's the story. And we always see him with a fan. We see him that he had a fan. So apparently it was possible for him to do that. So whether he was a low class person or just maybe a lower class Brahmin, or whether he was a paricharaka. Paricharaka means an assistant to the pujaris. We don't know, like that. Anyway, so that was the fourth thing. The fifth thing was such a one gets released from samsara and attains moksha. Right. So moksha is only after the fall of the body. Videha mukti is Ramanuja's philosophy, and not jivan mukti, or not moksha during the time. We are not considered liberated while we're still in this material body, but only after death. That's what the fifth one means. And the sixth one is the question of Ramanuja should choose as an acharya Mahapurna. Mahapurna is the disciple of Yamunacharya. So at this time, Yamunacharya or Alavanda had passed away, and Ramanuja was searching for a guru or a teacher to initiate him into Sri Vaishnavism. So he had that question, who should I choose then as an acharya? And he was given the answer by Varadaraja Perumal, choose acharya Mahapurna, who was one of the disciples of Alavanda or Yamunacharya. Ramanuja's doubts disappeared, and he respectfully accepted the answers communicated by Tirukachhi Nambi. Alavanda met two Sri Vaishnavas at Sri Rangam, hailing from Kanchi. Now we're talking about Alavanda, hailing from Kanchi, and heard from them about Ramanuja studying Vedanta under Yadava Prakash, and also about the differences that arose between the master Yadava Prakash and the pupil Ramanuja in the explanation of Vedanta texts. On hearing all about Ramanuja, he hurried to Kanchi, where he was received with due honors by his disciple Tirukachhi Nambi. So Tirukachhi Nambi was also a disciple of Yamunacharya of Alavanda. While paying his respects and worshipping Varadaraja at the temple, he saw Yadava Prakash coming with his followers. Being anxious to know Ramanuja, Alavanda asked if he was amongst the followers of Yadava Prakash. Now, at that time, they had made up and Ramanuja had gone back to the school, right? So then Ramanuja was shown to Alavanda, right? And he was mightily pleased that with Ramanuja and sent after him his silent prayers. But he did not want to personally talk to Ramanuja at that time because he already was with his teacher, Yadava Prakash. He wanted him to leave Yadava Prakash first, and only then would he approach him. He prayed to God, Yamunacharya prayed to God of the Hastigiri hill, which means Varadaraja Perumal, because the deity room in Kanchipuram is up on a little bit of a hill. And that's called Hastagiri. That Ramanuja should become the bearer of the torch of the Sri Vaishnava faith. Ramanuja one day heard Mahapurna reciting Alavandar's sloka, meaning, and was very anxious to meet Alavandar. So both Mahapurna and Ramanuja proceeded together to Sri Rangam. But to their grief, they came too late to see Alavandar or Yamunacharya alive. However, they both saw the remains of Alavandar, and at once they swooned, they fainted. So on recovering from their faint or swoon, Ramanuja exclaimed that he was unlucky and that he should give up the struggle and resign himself to fate, that he also felt like dying at that time. Mahapurna encouraged him with soothing words, persuaded him to take a last look at the earthly remains of Yamunacharya Alavanda. Ramanuja, on looking at the mortal remains, saw 3 fingers of the right palm of Alavanda folded. So he had 3 fingers folded. I'm not sure exactly which 3 fingers, but let's say these 3 fingers folded down like this. So on questioning those that were with the sage, they informed Ramanuja that he was always full of expressions of unbounded gratitude for Vyasadeva and his father, Parasara Muni, Parasara Rishi. Parasara Rishi is the author of Vishnu Purana, and Vedavyasa, of course, is the compiler of the Vedas and the author of the Puranas, all the Puranas except for Vishnu Purana, and many other scriptures. So Mahabharata, for example. His devotion to so he was always Yamunacharya was always making expressions of gratitude to Vedavyasa and Parasara Muni, Parasara Rishi. His devotion to Sri Shadakopa, Nama Alwar, was a thing by itself. And he used to regret that age and infirmity did not allow him to write a Vishishta Dvaita Vedanta, a type of flavor of Vedanta, which the Sri Vaishnavas follow, Bhashya or commentary on the Brahma Sutras of Vedavyasa, of Vyasa, which explain the Upanishads in this way, in the Sri Vaishnava way. Ramanuja is said to have cried out loud, "If I am allowed to remain on the earth long enough, if it be true that your Lord here is pleased with his humble servant, and if the Divine One deigns to grant my prayers, I have, before all of you, given my word that I will, to the best of my ability, carry out his last wishes," the last wishes of Yamunacharya. "If my service is accepted, I pray that the closed fingers open." The closed fingers open. Ramanuja is said to have seen the closed fingers open as a sign from Yamunacharya that he accepted Ramanuja's promise to do all these things for him. So now we have an extract from Prapanamritam, which is a book about acharyas and especially about Ramanuja's life, etc. Ramanuja very soon read the sign and exclaimed, "I hereby promise to enter the Vaishnava faith, to devote myself, my time and energies to the task of saving humanity. I shall lead them to the true faith, shall perfect them in the knowledge of the inner meanings of the sacred collect," meaning the Nalaya Divya Prabandham, and shall make them live out the doctrine of property or surrender at the feet of Sriman Narayana. One of the fingers of Yamuna opened. Ramanuja continued, I shall embody the teachings of the Vedas and the Shastras and of the great gurus in a commentary on the Vyasa Sutras or Brahma Sutras, Vedanta Sutras, and place the means of salvation within easy reach of all, which means preach property or surrender, refugee status. Another one of Yamuna's fingers opened by itself. Ramanuja went on, I shall select a holy Vaisnava and name him after the sage Parashara, who in the Vishnu Purana had unanswerably established the prominence of the Supreme Self, Sriman Narayana, his relation to the jiva and the path of liberation, and the last finger of Yamuna unclosed. So not only did Ramanuja name someone after Parashara, but he also named somebody after Vedavyasa as well. They were the two sons, the twin sons of Puresha, his main disciple. Ramanuja returned to Kanjivaram or Kanchipuram and was doing service to Varadaraja Swami, the deity in the temple there. His service was that he would bring water from a well for the Abhishekam, for the Tirumanjanam of the deity. Mahapurna left Sri Rangam to induce Ramanuja to come to Sri Rangam. At the same time, Ramanuja left Kanchi with a view to go to Sri Rangam. Both Mahapurna, there's a few stories about Ramanuja's life that we're missing out here, but it's okay, not a problem. It can be filled out by reading that book, Life of Ramanuja by Alkondavali Govindacharya. At the same time, Ramanuja left Kanchi with a view to go to Sri Rangam. So Mahapurna was leaving Sri Rangam, going to Kanchipuram, and Ramanuja was coming the other way. Both Mahapurna, right, the disciple of Yamunacharya Alavanda, and who Ramanuja had been instructed to take as a guru after Yamunacharya, and Ramanuja met accidentally at Madhurantakam in between. And Ramanuja pressed to be initiated into Vaishnavite secrets. So there in Madhurantakam is the place that Mahapurna gave the Pancha Samskara to Ramanuja. Agreeably to his wishes, Mahapurna initiated him, and both of them went back to Kanchipuram. Later in life, Ramanuja renounced family life and became a sannyasi of the Vishishtadvaita form. The main differences between the Advaitic sannyasis or the Mayavadi sannyasis, right, and the Sri Vaishnava sannyasis are in the staff and personal dress. The former, the Mayavadi or Advaitic sannyasis, usually carries with him a bamboo staff, and the latter carries 3 bamboo sticks tied together as his staff. So one is called an ekadanda, 1 stick, and the other is called a tridanda, or 3 sticks. The Vishishtadvaita sannyasi retains his hair, his tuft, his kudumi, his sacred thread, and usually performs his daily rites such as Sandhya Vandanam, the worship of God, whilst the Advaitic sannyasi has no tuft, gets rid of it, completely shaves his head, and removes the sacred thread. The sacred thread of Advaitic sannyasi is usually wrapped around the ekadanda with a piece of deer skin. He does not perform the usual sandhya, but simply meditates on Omkara, the Advaitic sannyasi, and which he performed before becoming a sannyasi. Sometime after becoming a sannyasi, Ramanuja sought Gosti Purna, another disciple of the Yamunacharya's, for further initiation. Actually, he wanted, for Gosti Purna, he wanted Tirukostio Nambi, he's called in Tamil. He wanted to go into the deep meanings of the Rahasya Traya, the 3 secret mantras given in initiation by Mahapurna. He, after testing Ramanuja a number of times, actually 18 times Ramanuja came to Gosti Purna's place, and he was rejected 17 times, but on the 18th time, he was accepted. And finally, finding him to be really well devoted and sincere in his desire to obtain knowledge of God, initiated him into the mysteries, the deeper esoteric meanings of the sacred words of the Astakshari mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. But Ramanuja proceeded, after hearing this, to the temple at Tirukotiur, right, where Gosti Purna was, Tirukotiur Nambi was, right? He went to the temple, and from the Gopuram proclaimed to Sri Vaishnavas after gathering them, all the secrets communicated to him by Gostipurna. So he went up and he proclaimed the secret mantra, even though Gostipurna told him not to tell everybody on pain of going to hell, right? Still, he told everyone who would come around, he told them the Astakshara mantra and the meaning. On hearing about this incident, Gostipurna became angry and asked Ramanuja why he thus disobeyed the sacred injunction. So Gostipurna had told him, do not tell everybody and anybody this mantra. It's a secret mantra. Yes, it leads you to Vaikuntha. You can go to Vaikuntha, but if you give it to everybody and everyone, you will go to hell. So Ramanuja replied that he divulged the secrets of all the Sri Vaishnavas, so that they may all hand down to posterity these secrets. By this, all of them have become your disciples and are therefore ever freed from the bonds of material existence. I felt, so he said this to his guru. He said, by giving them the secrets, now they've all become your disciples and they are now going to be free from material existence and go to Sri Vaikuntha. I felt compassion for these persons. I felt that they are Sri Vaishnavas, right? Ramanuja said, and others of mankind. And so this emboldened me to behave as I did. And if I have incurred any sin, it is likely to affect me only as an individual, and the merit of the wholesale salvation goes to you. So he said to Gostipurna, you will have liberated all these people by me giving them this information, even though you told me not to do it. And if any sin is there, I am prepared to go to hell, as you said, for disobeying your order or the scriptures. On hearing this explanation, which showed the compassion and the large-heartedness of Ramanuja, Gostipurna was mightily pleased, and from that moment, he had the greatest regard for Ramanuja. Ramanuja's greatness consists of his establishing firmly the Vishishtadvaita philosophy, so well developed in his Sribhashya, his commentary, which he wrote on the order of Alavandar Yamunacharya. It should not, however, be thought that he was the originator of the system of the philosophy. It was not his idea. His ideas that he put forth, he just systematized it. He took the ideas of previous people, previous acharyas. He just codified them. It was in vogue even before his time. It was taught before Ramanuja's time by Bodhayana, who was a great commentator on the Yajurveda also. Tanka, who is called Bhakyakara, Bhagavat Sri Vatsanka Mishra, Natamuni and Alavandar, apart from others. There are some others, Dramida, Karpardin, there are some other people which Ramanuja mentions, other great teachers who came before him. Many of these acharyas promulgated this system of philosophy, but were not able to stem the theory of Advaitism, right, of Shankaracharya, so ably advocated by Shankaracharya. So these other acharyas were there and they preached that philosophy of Vishishtadvaita, but Shankara was very good at preaching Advaita, and so therefore none of them could stand up against Shankara's preaching. So Shankaracharya based his bhashya on the Vedas and the Upanishads. In the face of the doctrine of the Shankaracharya, the theory of love and bhakti could not be easily established. The one great attempt of the Alwars and the acharyas that preceded Ramanuja was to preach the doctrine of bhakti or devotion and prapatti or surrender, to disprove the theory of maya or illusion. It was left for Ramanuja to lay the foundation of Vishishtadvaita on a very firm basis by means of his writing in the Sribhashya. He established the monotheistic principles on the basis of the Brahma Sutras or Vedanta Sutras and the Upanishads, and thus succeeded in opposing successfully the Advaitic philosophy of Shankaracharya, the Mayavada philosophy. From the explanations given by Ramanuja in opposition to those given by Yadava Prakash, his teacher, it is evident that he had Vishishtadvaitic views from an early age. Further, he was influenced very much by the writings of the Alwars and the Acharyas. And in fact, we may say that he realized in his own experience the ancient wisdom. So instead of trying to find out what his original views are, it would be better to consider him as having propounded clearly and succinctly the wisdom of the wise of all times. As a result of his inspiration from various sources, his thoughts were molded and he set forth a deeply religious view of God, soul, and matter. So that is Ishvara, Chit, and Achit. These are the three subjects, the three principles explained in the Vedanta Sutras in the Upanishads. His chief aim seems to have been to preach the doctrine of salvation through bhakti and to make it out to be the central teaching of the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, and the Bhagavad Gita. It would not be an exaggeration if Ramanuja's attempt in the Sri Bhashya is described as an effort surpassing in merit and completeness any previous effort in the same direction. He was undoubtedly the spokesman of his age. He proclaimed to the world the doctrine of property or self-surrender to God to be the means of salvation. He also took care not to reject the rituals and the regulations laid down according to the Vedas. In short, as remarked by a European scholar, the person he's talking about here is Thibault. There's a guy called George Thibault who translated Shankara's commentary on Vedanta Sutras into English in Sacred Books of the East. You could read that. And he also translated Ramanuja's commentary, Sri Bhashya, in Sacred Books of the East as well. And Thibault has said, after reading both of them, completely objectively as a Western scholar, he says the teaching of Ramanuja presents to us the highest intellectual altitude in which its varied history, to which in all its varied history by Indian theism. So once again, the teaching of Ramanuja presents to us the highest intellectual altitude, the highest in all its varied history by Indian theism. So this is by a very famous Western scholar called George Thibault. And you can read his translation of the Brahma Sutras according to Vedanta Sutras, according to Shankara, and according to Ramanuja. And he says in his translation, in the foreword, in the introduction of Ramanuja's translation of Sri Bhashya, he says, "I've read them both, and it seems to me that Ramanuja's explanation is much, much more correct than Shankara's. Even though Shankara's is a great explanation, it has some good ideas and things like that, Ramanuja's is much higher and much better than the explanation on Vedanta Sutras than Shankara's." That was just a little bit about Ramanuja's life. There's a lot more to be read about Ramanuja's life, and you can find it in the Life of Ramanuja by Alkondavili Govindacharya, which you can easily get to download.
If the first Acharya was
Natamuni,
and he was the disciple of Nama Albar, what happened with the knowledge in this long period of time?
Can you see this? Can you see this poster?
Yes.
Okay. This is an explanation in poster form of the southern school, the Tengalai Sri Vaisnava lineage of Acharyas. It starts at the top with Ranganatha, Lord Ranganatha. You can see Ranganatha here, right? The Lord of Sri Rangam, right? And next to him is Mahalakshmi, Ranganayaki, right? And then Vishvaksena. These are all in Sri Vaikuntham. Srimanarayana, Mahalakshmi, Sri Devi, and Vishvaksena, who is the secretary or head of Lord Vishnu's army. Then the incarnation or Amsavatar of Vishvaksena is Namalwar. From Namalwar, we understood he connected with Natha Muni. Natha Muni was in yogic trance after chanting 12,000 times the Kananun Siddhatambu of Madhura Kavi Alwar, the disciple of Namalwar, and he was given all of the Alwar's Divya Prabandham by Natha Muni, and also the three Rahasyas, right, basically initiated him. So Natha Muni, from Natha Muni came to Pundarikaksha, also known as Uyakonda in Tamil. From Pundarikaksha to Rama Mishra, also known as Manakal Nambi in Tamil. From Manakal Nambi came to Yamunacharya. From Yamunacharya to Mahapurna. From Mahapurna to Ramanuja with his two disciples, Dasarati and Mudliandan, or Kuresha. Dasarati or Mudliandan, and Kuresha or Kuritalwan. Kuritalwan is with the beard on the left-hand side. And Dasarati or Mudliandan is on the other side. His two main disciples. So then we have, after Ramanuja, we have Govinda Jir, right? Also called Embar, the cousin of Ramanuja, who was also in the Gurukul of Yadava Prakash. Then we have Parasura Bhatta, also just known as Sri Bhatta, right? Parasura Bhatta was the son of the person Kuradalwan with the beard down here, Kuresha. He was one of the twin sons. The other son was Vedavyasa Bhatta. We read about that Ramanuja wanted to fulfill one of the promises of Yamunacharya was one of the three fingers. One of the promises represented praising Parasura Rishi and Vedavyasa Rishi. So he named the two sons of his disciple, Kuradalwan, Kuresha, as Vedavyasa Bhatta and Parasura Bhatta. So here we have Parasura Bhatta. So after Parasura Bhatta, then we have Vedanti Jir, also known as Nanjir, which means my sannyasi in Tamil. Then we continue on, we have Nampillai, also known as Palivadu Dasa. Then we have Sri Krishna or Lokacharya. Sri Krishna or Padakatiravidi Pillai, right? And then we have Lokacharya or Pillai Lokacharya. Then we have Sri Shailesha Swami, right? Who was the disciple of Pillai Lokacharya and the spiritual master of Manavalama Munigal, so otherwise known as Varavara Muni, right? And then Varavara Muni was such a great preacher that he preached the commentary to Namalwar's Tiruvai Moli, right, in the Sri Rangam temple for 1 full year. And Lord Ranganatha stopped all of his utsavas to listen to the lectures of Namalwar. I'm sorry, of Natamuni, of Manavala Muni. And he incarnated, Lord Ranganatha himself became one of his disciples and wrote the Pranam Mantra or Taniyan for Manavala Muni, Sri Shailesha Dayapatram, Vibhakyari Gunanavam, Yatindram Paravam Bande, Ramijamatara Munim. He wrote that for Varavara Muni or Manavala Muni. So this is the Guru Parampara of the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas in the form of a garland. It's called Oramvali Guru Parampara. So it goes round in a circle like this. It comes back. It's the only parampara like this. All the other paramparas go from God to the present day. This one goes around, comes back to God. So the Supreme Lord up here is the original spiritual master. He's also the original disciple. He's the disciple of Manavala Muni. Then in the middle of this poster, we see the three mantras. The first mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya, is represented by Narayana Rishi and Nara Rishi in the Badrik Ashram in the Himalayas, teaching the Astakshara mantra Om Namo Narayanaya. In Sri Vaikuntham, Sriman Narayana teaching his divine consort Mahalakshmi Sri Devi, the Dwaya mantra, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharam Papadeshmate Narayanaya Namaha. And down the bottom, we have on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Lord Krishna, the charioteer of Arjuna, teaching Arjuna the Krishna Charama Sloka, or the final message on surrender by Lord Krishna. Sarvadharman Prityaja Mame Kamsharam Bhaja Ahamsa Sarupapi Vyomokshe Masajaha, which is the 66th verse of the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So that is the Sampradaya. That is the teachings of the Sampradaya. That is the lineage of the Sampradaya in one poster to understand.
Okay, but you say that the parampara of Tengalai Vaishnavas are like a garland. That means that the parampara finished in Lord Ranganath?
No, it didn't finish. From each one of those personalities, there are people who are coming off that. You know, there are others who these are the main ones. These are the main ones. These are the main ones. Just like a tree has many branches and newer branches grow like that. But these are the main branches. These are the main branches of the Guru Parampara. And this is one way of understanding them. So everybody in the Southern School of Sri Vaishnavism has all these acharyas in common. We all pray to all these acharyas in common. There may be other acharyas also, but we all have these in common. These are the common acharyas for it's the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas. It's the Sri Rangam acharyas, like that. Now, There are other Sri Vaishnavas, the northern, the Vadagalai, Deshika, it's called Deshika Sampradaya. They include many other acharyas. There are many acharyas who are teaching Sri Vaishnavism. These are the most important ones for the southern school, like that. It's not that Vedanta Deshika isn't considered important. He's also a great acharya, like that. But this is the lineage which is preached by the Tengalai Sri Vaishnavas.
Regarding Kanchipurna, you say that it's not clear if he was a low caste or maybe another of Brahman.
Some people say.
Okay.
We know that he was serving. Okay. So even today in some of the temples, they have these people called Satata Sri Vaishnavas. So Satata Sri Vaishnavas they even have people called Ekangis. They have, if you go to Sri Rangam, down near the Kaveri, there's a big garden, Tadacharya garden or totem. Totem means a garden. And they grow flowers and they make the garlands for the deity in Lord Ranganatha. And the people who make those garlands are called Ekangis. They're not Brahmins necessarily. They wear saffron and they maybe not Brahmins, Ekangi means they just wear one cloth, okay? But there are different groups and they have different things that they do. If you go to the flower market in Sri Rangam, it's called Satada Vidi. So all these Satada Sri Vaishnavas, Satada seems to be a corruption in Tamil of the word Sattvika or Sattvata, right? Sattvika, right? Sattvik means in the mode of goodness. So these people, whether they were Brahmins before or Brahmins, they're not Brahmins anymore. They don't wear the sacred thread anymore. So some people say that Ramanuja saw these, asked for people who could do some other forms of service in the temple. And the Brahmins said, oh, we are busy doing our fire ceremonies and our Sanjivandana and all these things like that. And so these people said, well, we'll do it, but we're busy. We're also busy because we're Brahmins doing these things. So Ramanuja said, forget about all the Brahmin rituals, take off the sacred threads and just do Vaishnava service in the temple to this group of people. So some people say like that. Other people say that they weren't Brahmins, but they were elevated to being just like Brahmins to do certain. So Ramanuja asked them to sweep the temple, to make the garlands, to light the lamps, keep the oil lamps all burning in the temple because they had no electricity in those days. So there were many things, tedious tasks that they had to do. That's why I said that Kanchipurna, maybe he was a Sattvika Sri Vaishnava, Sattvika Sri Vaishnava. Maybe he was a non-Brahmin. Maybe he was, but he was a Bhagavata. He was definitely a devotee. He was a disciple of Imanacharyas. And maybe he had certain services in the temple, which normally we would associate with Brahmins, but they had other people doing them.
Om Namo